My name is Robbie Luckett. Today is Saturday, March the 18th, 2017. We're at the Smith Robertson Museum and Cultural Center in Jackson, Mississippi. Do I have your permission to record this interview?
Yes, you do.
Can you tell me your name and spell it, please?
My name is Sankofa, S as in Sam, A as in Adam, N as in Nancy, K as in Kite, O as in Ostrich, F as in Frank, A as in Adam. My last name is R-A.
Tell me a little bit about yourself, where you're from, how you grew up, about your parents, and a little bit of your background.
I was born to a woman of African ancestry out of the South, from Georgia. Her name is Sabrina Fairchild Robinson. My father, out of African ancestry from St. Lucia in the Caribbean. His name is Mercier Joseph Bob. And I was born in the Bronx in a fierce, cold winter blizzard on December 8th, 1976. And yes, I was raised in the Bronx for about 2 years, and then and over time I was taken over and raised by my grandmother, Marie Robinson, and my great-grandmother, my great-grandmother, Emma May Wright, my mother's side. And, even though I have 12 siblings, 6 brothers and 6 sisters, I was ironically raised as a separate child. So I grew up pretty much around elders. Even though it's in New York, I grew up with elders who were, from the South, and so, in the building it was all filled up with people from the South. So you felt like, it was like its own little community within itself, because of the Southern hospitality was very strong, and everybody went in and checked on each other and made sure no one went hungry. My great-grandmother, she was very much the matriarch of the family. She always made sure that everyone was taken care of. If someone needed help, no matter where the family was, whether, because I have a very big family, they're spread out, whether they're in Detroit, New York, the South, she would make sure that if they needed help, she would go out and help them, because that's what you did, your family comes first. And so I learned that from her. I learned how to, be nurturing and loving, and, to take care of others, and to see it as a selfless act. That was just part of what you do, that you look after your family, you look after others. And I learned from my grandmother the importance of being yourself, and no matter, whatever your station was in life, socially or economically, that the way you present yourself in the world was what really mattered. And that was a really important piece, because she taught me the beauty of books. She had a great plethora of books. Whether it was yoga, or if it was Elijah Muhammad, or if it was anything you could possibly think of, she had a book about it. And amazingly, I learned yoga from her, by watching her. So she was quite an amazing woman. She was, she strutted her stuff, because back then in the day, no matter, whether you was cleaning houses, you always what they call dress to the nines. So she was always dressed to impress, and you would never know that most of her life she always was, cleaning houses and doing domestic work. But she always said that, it's the way you present yourself. You have to take care of yourself, and it doesn't matter what people think of you or what you're doing, but it's matter what you think of yourself and how you present yourself to the world. So that was what really stood with me. So I, was raised in New York, went to school in New York. My first love was actually archaeology, because I always loved history, wanted to know what is the source of things, where does that come from, what is the meaning of that? But I went to school, went to Marist College in New York, to stay close to my family, and plus, because my grandmother was, she got hurt in her job, and so I wanted to stay close to her and keep an eye on her, and also do my studies. So my mother was like, well, you be practical, do something that makes sense. So I went to school for business, studied business. I love organization and business sense, but for me, I feel like I needed more than that. And so I was in a search of myself, trying to figure things out. But one day, a very dear friend of mine, she just looked at me. She's like, you know what? You would be an amazing midwife. And I said, oh wow, really? That's amazing, because I've always had great respect for black midwives, and even though it wasn't something that was taught to me or something that was really talked about, because my grandmother and my great grandmother, they were all ushered into the world by midwives, because that was common in the South. Especially if you lived at what they call in the backwoods, you was birthed by a midwife. So, so it's just been, I find that if something is your calling, it just finds you. And so when I started getting into births and, catching babies and being there with women, and it just felt so natural for me. I was like, this is it. This is really, what I've come here to do. There's nothing like realizing who you are and understanding, I do have purpose, I do have something to offer, and realizing the legacy, the beautiful legacy of black midwifery, in the United States, because black midwives didn't just catch black babies, they catch white babies, they served everybody. And when you're in birth, it doesn't matter who it is, because it's the beauty of birth. Birth is a very humbling experience. To see the whole process of what a woman goes through, it's really transformative for her to be pregnant for, it's really, they say 9 months, but it's really 10 months, and to see just how she gives space to this other being, nurturing this other being, and for this way this being just comes through her, and the baby being birthed. It's an amazing experience, and I think that's something that we in the United States are so removed from, because I think it would be a much more humbling and peaceful country if we were more connected to birth and just realize and just, it's a very humbling experience. But yes, it's something I love to do. And I also learned that, midwife wasn't just about catching babies, she was also about nurturing the mother, teaching the mother how to mother, and teaching her how to take care of herself, how to take care of the baby, how to, as soon as the baby was born, the mother, she like a queen. She didn't get up, do anything, because that really, you have this muscle called the uterus, which is like the size of your fist, and when you get to that point where you're about to give birth, your womb gets to the size of a watermelon, and nobody else has an organ that does all those miraculous things, and it takes 10 months to get to that point, and it takes about 10 months, 12 months just to get it back to where it needs to be, and they understood that. They knew that you have to rest, and what they call the shutdown period, or the quiet time, the first 6 weeks is very critical, because that's a time where she is literally open. Her whole body, her organs have shifted, everything is misaligned, and so what they do is what they call binding. You bind the body to help pull everything back together. Today, they would call it a girdle, but it was really more intricate, because you actually use cloth and you actually wrap it around the midsection of the body, and you pulling in all the organs, and it helped also to pull the womb in, and keeping her warm, because it's a very important time that she doesn't get cold, and you'll see that throughout all Eastern cultures, that the mother stays in. She doesn't wear her head, because you don't want her to get cold. You don't want the cat get sick. So everything is kept warm. Like, she's going to get a bath. Back in the day, they didn't give them baths because, they didn't want to risk her getting sick. So she had to stay warm, feed her warm foods, nurturing foods, to aid in the healing process. She didn't, so that time, all the women in the community looked after each other. They took care of the women who gave birth, and all her household duties were taken care of, because she was supposed to be moving around. That's a time where she had to rest and heal and bond with her child, and sit her in a bathtub. Well, I mean bathtub, like she would be in a bath of herbs to help heal what we call the perineum, that little space between the vagina and the rectum. Heal that and heal just the whole reproductive system, which like you releasing a lot of fluids, but it's just a very precious time because once a woman gives birth, then now it's like you have to mother the mother, mother her, mother the baby, so mother her so that she can mother the baby, and then today in the United States, slowly they're realizing the importance of postpartum recovery, because postpartum depression is linked to the woman not being given any love or not being taken care of as soon as she goes home, because all the focus is about the baby. The baby is wonderful, but there's no celebration of the mother and giving her praise of her becoming a mother and being there to take care of her and to praise her, and because all of a sudden it's like she's left to be alone, and now it's up to her to take care of herself and the baby, and that's really not the way it's supposed to happen, because it's dangerous, because she's going through a lot. I mean, to me that's the greatest marathon a woman can go through, is to give birth, and then when she gives birth, now it's the community's turn and the midwives' turn to take care of her, nurse her back to health, and so so slowly in different states they're incorporating what they call more short-term. They call it short-term disability, or giving you more time to be home on paid leave. But in different countries like Sweden, mother is taken care of for 2 years by the government. She has full access to postpartum recovery resources. She's given what we call a doula. A doula is a servant. I think in Greek it means a woman's servant, and she's serving and nurturing the mother, taking care of all of her needs, and they respect a woman's time and understanding the value and the importance of the woman being a mother and taking care and being there with the child, and so it's amazing. It's amazing to see what certain things are still lacking, but I have faith that that it will get to that point where you will have. Well, you start seeing some states where you're having paid leave of the mother and the father, and whoever is going to be the supporter will be given paid leave to be there and take care of her while she's recovering, because that's where you can avoid so many unnecessary deaths, whether it's infant mortality or maternal mortality, because that first year is very critical. A lot of women can go into deep depression. They can hurt themselves. They can hurt the baby if they're not given sufficient care and time to recover. And I think it's pretty criminal to expect a woman to go back to work so soon and to not respect the physiological changes that she's going through and giving her time to recover. But yes, just the whole process of midwifery is amazing, because a midwife is not just there to catch a baby, but she's there to really take care, teach the mother how to mother, teach the father how to father, and learning. She's like that glue, keeping the family together and incorporating communal standards, cultural standards, and she's like the spiritual counselor. She's the relationship counselor. She's there to really watch the child as the child grows, but she's really there with them like every step of the way from birth to death. Even if someone is on their deathbed, she's there to nurture them and to help usher them and have a peaceful death. There's so many things that the midwife does, and she was a very very vital character and role in the community, especially in the South. It wasn't just for black families, as I said before, it was for white families, and she really taught them how to keep it together and how to take care of themselves. She would even teach them how to work with herbs, because that was a very important piece of her craft as her role in the community. Teaching women how to be connected with the earth, be connected with the herbs, and using the herbs to not just take care of themselves, but take care of the children, take care of their family. And they also use it as a way to teach them how to be, entrepreneurs. Teaching them how to take that and use that to also take care of them, take care of themselves and have a business. And but back in those times, because of the economic conditions, there wasn't a lot of money. But regardless, midwifery work was always seen as God's work, and that regardless of whether somebody had money or not, they were served, they were taken care of. The midwife came, no matter where they were, and she would be paid, whether it's with chickens, produce, promises, but it was always whether you have money or not. I'm going to be here to make sure you have a safe and humbling delivery. And when regulations came in, back in the 1920s, what we call the Shepherd-Towner Act in 1921, that's when you start seeing a lot of changes with the government getting involved and trying to. I think they honestly did want to try to make some changes with the infant mortality and the maternal mortality, but it was more of an attack on the black midwife, and at that time you had a lot of doctors. You had a lot of doctors being created, and nurses, and so they really was replacing her. Even though they first get all the information they needed, but then she was really replaced systematically by white male doctors, and then it really changed the whole face of birth, having to not give birth at home, but then you go to the hospital and not really understanding the whole female body and the process and being tied down, and so it's woman's supposed to be up, squatting or allowing gravity to kick in when she's giving birth, but when she's in the hospital, she's forced to lay on her back. I mean, imagine having to go to the bathroom and lay on your back. It works against nature, so causing all different types of issues and problems. But there is a resurgence, or definitely an awareness of midwifery. I would say pretty much thanks to doulas, doula work. There's a big movement of awareness of women of their reproductive bodies and wanting to have like a natural birth, wanting to have like a birth plan and have a doula, and in the midst of all that, then there's an increasing need for a midwife, because if they want to give a natural birth, the first thing they want to do is have it at home, and having it at home means having a midwife. So now there's a lot more laws that are changing state by state to make sure that that midwives are legal, and that they can practice, and that they can practice and get paid to be there at a birth. Even though you still have, I would say underground lay midwives who are still practicing and trying to be there for women, especially in the rural areas where there are no hospitals, where they have no easy access to resources, because women who are in rural areas, they're more in danger than any, you could be poor and be in the city, but then you have access to a lot of resources, but out in the country, you don't really have much access to anything. So, I'm in school. I'm finishing up my prerequisites to go for my master's in midwifery, and once I finish, open up a birthing center, and really that will be my life's work, developing the birthing center and incorporating, I would say, the ancient African traditions of midwifery, and really trying to help, I would say, heal and educate not just the African American community, but also the communities within the United States, because there's a great need for it. There's a great need for the resurgence of midwifery to really eliminate a lot of unnecessary deaths that can be avoided. But I think with the continuous push of the reproductive rights community. Slowly but surely, they will definitely, I think, birth will be put back into the hands of women, their families, and midwives again.
Your knowledge is remarkable. What did you know about midwifery before it was suggested that you would be a good midwife?
I was always interested in women's work. I mean, even before, I was told that I would be an excellent midwife, I was always interested in women in particular, I always felt that I had a calling or a purpose to do healing work with women. I never knew what it was. I always said, okay, I'm going to do something with women, some kind of women's wellness center. But then then I always, picked up all these different skills because I've always been I've always been very much personally attracted to health and wellness, but I always understood that it was a very special connection with a woman, and and I had when I don't say, some people say cycle, some say period, menstruation, but I'll say moon cycle because it's really like in the cycle of the moon. So when my moon cycle began, I started having these visions of my children, and then that really propelled me to be very mindful of what I did and how I took care of my body, the relationships I had. So that really was propelling me to really take a look at, my womb. My grandmother, they didn't know how to. They didn't have education about, a lot of different things, but she knew enough to know that she couldn't be the one to really know how to explain that new stage in life. So she gave me a book. She gave me I guess it was like a health board, or the book where they talk about women's anatomy and the changes that's going on. So I was grateful because I was like, oh wow, because I really do have a scientific mind, and I just loved how it just explained everything, and so I was just always fascinated with the changes a woman's body goes through every month, and understand that woman has all her eggs when she's born as a baby. She's born with all the eggs that she would have in her life to give birth. Which was a lot. I think it's like over 5 eggs. So no matter how many times you shed blood, and women are not taught, or even women and men, don't look at it as when the blood is being shed, that's I guess a birth that did not come to pass. But that's the body just constantly preparing itself, for a baby. The promise of it, when the promise doesn't happen, then the body just lets go of the blood, and then it gets prepared all over again. But yeah, I just find it fascinating, the miracle of the woman's body, her anatomy, and being able to also transform herself once it receives a sperm, and also you have this baby, this child is being created, and everything, and even in the womb, we hear as a child, you hear everything, they'll say be mindful of your thoughts, what you do, because the child hears everything. You talk to the child, and it's like you're nurturing the child the whole time while the child's in the womb. And then with tradition and with midwifery, you tell a woman to never go to a funeral, never be around death, because you're carrying life. So and I spoke to a lot of women where they would go to a funeral in their early stages of their pregnancy, and many times they would have a miscarriage. So, it's very important that whatever a woman's doing, that she's doing everything possible, and everybody who's around her is to nurture and love and put that love out there, because the child receives all that. But yeah, I just find it so fascinating, and I think also with the men too. Men also have to be nurtured, because they also make sure that they're not just the females who take care, but they also make sure that the males who take care, they understood their role in the community, as well, because men do have a very important role in the family, and being there, and providing support to the mother, even though in tradition men are not allowed, or be present in the birth because it's seen as women's work, and then women are surrounded by women. But today, I mean, you have the male there, the father there, and many times that helps, the mother to really have as much peace as mind, for the father to be present. And then sometimes you have fathers who just don't know, or I find fathers where they fainted or they just wasn't prepared. Or then you have like the fathers who were complete champions and they were there ready to catch the baby. So, it's you never know what's, going to happen. But yeah, it's amazing. I think it's such amazing work. And just honored to be a part of carrying on the legacy and the tradition of my ancestors. And my father's mother, she was a midwife, and she was a healer, educator, and so I feel like I'm carrying on the tradition, like it's part of the lineage. And many times they would say that it's something that's also hereditary, that it tends to run in the family. So it's an honor.
When you made the decision to pursue this path, what was the educational process for you?
Oh, it was just learning everything, learning the reproductive system, learning how to help someone heal, because I find that when you're having a child, you want to make sure that you yourself, that you have it together, whether it's your health, healthy relationships, healthy finances. Looking at the whole picture. What I'll call preconception planning or preparation, because in African tradition we call it the rites of passage. And from you have a young girl who, once her cycle begins, you're preparing her for womanhood, motherhood, and by the time they reach a certain age, they know how to take care of themselves. They know how to be a wife, how to be a mother, and it's an amazing process. Same thing for a young boy. They go through rites of passage, and sometimes you'll see in films where like they took him out to the woods and they came back as a man, and but like that rites of passage piece is is very important, like the preconception process for a mother and a father. And I find that just studying that, just for myself, especially just all the different things I have gone through, and still go through, but not as much. Just preparing myself, my own healing process, taking care of my body, getting my finances, all relationships. So it's just the whole preparation piece, because the womb, the womb and the sperm is, it's like your child is only as healthy as what you have to give them. So if you make sure that the womb is healthy, that you've done your best to eat right and take care of yourself, nurture yourself, and healthy relationships, then you're going to give birth to a healthy child. And to me, part of my birthing center is called, I call it more like a cultural movement, because it's a mindset, it's a way of being. So I call it conscious birthing, helping a woman and a man to become conscious of who they are, being actively involved in their own healing and having purpose. Because I find that when you have purpose in life, that you know who you are, that you know what is it your role is to play. You make wiser decisions. You make wise decisions for yourself. You choose healthy relationships. You know how to choose a healthy partner. A partner, not necessarily marriage, but you choose someone, that you can decide, this is someone I want to, have children with. Then that causes a paradigm shift in having a healthy baby, raising a baby, but consciously raising that child to live a better life, or to do things better, like to be progressive and to have a healthy community, a healthy society. So it all starts back, with the womb, with the mother, and the decisions that she makes. But yeah, it's been, it's a lot to learn, and I just find that, it's a never-ending learning process, because there's always so much to learn. And that's what I'm going to talk about today in a presentation about the amazing things that they did, and the symbols and the remedies, and it's amazing because once you go into that world, it's just like it's wow, they knew all those things, and it's like wow, we have so much to learn and do, and it's really you realize that they really did had to start training them as a young child. Like I think because when the child's born, what they look for is what they call the veil. Like if a child is born and they're born in the amniotic sac, they call it the veil, and they say that's a child who's born with gifts, with psychic abilities. And many times they also say that's also the sign of a midwife. Um, so, it's just, and I was honored because the first baby I caught was born in the veil. So, it was quite an honor. But yes, I find that there's so much to constantly keep learning because there's so much to know. It's like you almost have to learn the whole lifespan from birth to death, and knowing how to develop and prepare a human being for life, and I think that's something that people today will walk away and understand just how much a midwife did, and how intricate, how much she is the glue of not only her community but of society.
Were there specific women who mentored you as you began this journey and have been along it?
I think I look at my great-grandmother because she taught me the art of being a matriarch, but I just looked at a lot of women, who I learned, whether it was Mama Nankuleko in Harlem, but I just try to always seek out Black midwives wherever I can, or learn what I can, and because it's just so much to learn. But yeah, there was no one specifically in my family. Like I said, the only one that that I learned of was my grandmother on my father's side, but she passed away before I was even born. But whenever there's anything involving a midwife, I try to pick up information by books. I'm always just constantly learning wherever there's something about midwifery. I want to be there. Like it's just electric for me. The constant learning is it's ongoing, and I'm just I think it's just amazing the work that they did, and how much is still yet to be learned and known about. I call it craft. It's really really an art for for what they do. But yeah, and teaching it and passing on the tradition, which is very important because I think it's so important for there to be a midwife in I think every community should have a midwife, because that would help. To me that would help resolve a lot of social ills as well. But yeah, I think the youth have to be involved in the process because they are the future, and I think it starts at an early age because the amount of information that you have to learn and know is very deep. But they would not start becoming a midwife until they've actually reached menopause, because by that time they know what it means to be a mother, because you can't teach a mother to be a mother if you haven't had children and raised your own family. So in that tradition, they actually did wait until after they had raised their own family, because when you're a midwife, you no longer belong to your family. You belong to the community, and it's a full-time job. A birth can happen any time of day. You can't pin it. You can't put it. You can't schedule it. That's the difference in the hospital. Like when they're in the hospital, they rush because they want to try to get it done within a certain time frame. But birth can come at any time and anywhere, and so if you have young children, it's very difficult because you have to be there, nurturing the mother, taking care of the family, counseling them, prenatal care. It's a very demanding job. So that's why I understand why they say it's best to wait until after you had your children to start becoming a midwife, because once you become a midwife, you now belong to the community, and you can't really be there for your children, or for your you have to have a very understanding husband too, because he has to be understanding of what you do and respect it, because some midwives end up just either having divorce or having issues with their children because it's you really can't have it. I mean, you can have family, but you really have to have a lot of support. because it's a very demanding job.
How do women come to you now? And at what point in their motherhood do they come to you? And
Well, I talk to women at all different stages. I'm very, my biggest focus is the preconception part. Because, to me, once you become pregnant, it's late, it's too late. I mean, because what you're doing, I mean, you can't really change, all the things that you have and have not done. But if you prepare your body, if you prepare your mind and your heart for, whenever that time may come, then you're better for it. I try to tell them like what they can do every day to take care of themselves, because you don't want to. You want to avoid, like, the biggest thing among women issues can be preeclampsia, gestational diabetes, because the body takes everything it has to take care of that baby. So whether it is pulling magnesium or calcium from your bones, because the body biologically treats the baby as the #1 priority. So, I try to tell women, like, you have to, make sure you take care of yourself, because when you do become pregnant, there's a lot. You can still some things you can do, but many times it's like there's certain, whether it's if you have certain things that run in the family, you have to be aware of that, and also of your partner, because if you do prepare yourself and your partner, then you have better outcomes with the birth, having a full-term birth, and having a healthier baby.
And do women come to you? They know of you in the community. How do they learn about you, and how do they?
Oh, the birthing community is actually very small. So, I'm very much involved and known for my reproductive advocacy, and my women's work. I try to do as much work in the community as I can to educate. The biggest thing is education, because a lot of women and men don't even understand their bodies or the whole process, and try to incorporate. I try to do a lot of women's wellness workshops, but I'm also trying to incorporate men wellness workshops, because the men are very much a part of the equation. You can't just educate and be involved in the healing process with women and not include the men. And so I find that that's also a very important part of the work.
Are there young women that you are training now to be midwives?
I would say probably so. There are young women that I was involved in doing a lot of training, because I always that's always been something I've always been good at, which is I love to teach and educate, but yeah, that's something that I also want to incorporate in the birthing center, which is the apprenticeship piece, the training piece. But I'm always educating. Whether it's something that's talked about, I don't care if I'm on the train, or I'm always talking about something, whether it's something they need to know, because I don't want them to make the connection, about, just how valuable they are, and their bodies, and, whatever that time may come, because, you never know. Unless you plan for it, but many births in the United States are not planned for. So I try to educate as much as I can, and but I would say I am known in the birthing community, in New York and abroad, because the birthing community is actually a very small community, but I try to do educate, have every opportunity I can to pass on the knowledge. I take advantage of it.
When it's time for the baby to be born, do the women come to you? Do you go to their homes? What is that process?
I'm open to wherever she is comfortable. What you do is, I'll teach them, I'll educate them about it, and the most important thing is women knowing their rights. They need to know what they have the right to know, and understand their body and the whole process. And women, there are some women who are comfortable and have enough faith in themselves and the birthing process to want to give birth at home. I've helped women give birth at home. I've helped women give birth in the birthing center, in a hospital. But I find that whatever you bring with you, I find that either it's a doula or a midwife is one who sets the tone of of that space. Whether she's in the hospital, the birthing center, but I try to make sure that I set the tone, so that way whoever is there, the doctors and nurses, to really respect, this whole process. And always carry, to me, like, my magic, I would say my magic tool, or my magic weapon is my massage oil, because, the fragrance of it and the combination of the oils really sets the tone for the mother, because I always massage the mother from head to toe to help her relax, because you can't really give birth if you're tense and you don't feel comfortable, because once she smells the scents, it puts her into a different frame of mind, and it helps her and the baby, and to just allow the body just to become relaxed and do what it do. But yeah, I'm about helping the mother to understand what her rights are, what she's comfortable with. And sometimes, you may not be able to give birth at home, even though you can have all the intentions, you prepared everything, but sometimes it doesn't go as planned. But I'm always there, and I always make sure the mother knows that regardless of however it goes, I'm here to support you, and know that whatever the decision is, it is your decision. That, this is not my birth. I'm not in your body. I can't, I can't tell you, I can tell you, what to expect, but this is your birth and your body, and if you feel that you have to go, and if something gets to a certain point where you have to go to the hospital, then then you have to go to the hospital. Don't feel bad about it, but you did your best. But yeah, I'm about supporting them in whatever the decision is, and helping them to have much of a healthy and safe, birthing, a birth as possible.
Do you have children?
Not yet.
I assume that should that happen, you would choose a midwife.
Oh yes. I spend many times just thinking about how I would like it to go, but I probably would either I'd be outside in nature, or I'd be at home. But yeah, that, and also making sure that I would have a big support to take care of me when I'm home, because I want to be able to relax and be taken care of when I'm at home. But yeah, when that time comes, I will definitely be ready.
What else do we need to know at this point about midwifery and the work that you do?
To be very fierce advocates for the midwife. Because I've been following the news, especially in Mississippi. There's been issues with, because to me, it's regardless of whatever anybody feels, I think a woman has a right, whether she wants to have a baby or not. I think she has a right to have an abortion if she wants to have an abortion. But I think, just being very much involved in the whole reproductive process and the educational piece, because I find that there's not enough education on sexual health and wellness throughout the United States. But I think that's very key, and having that involved and be involved in changing the laws. You're slowly seeing laws change when it comes to breastfeeding, things in the hospital, but being very much involved in changing the laws for making it possible for there to be more midwives, and for it to be an easier process, because it's not an easy process to become midwife. And it's done on purpose in the medical industry, because they see this competition, because birth is it's a big money making business. If you convince a woman to go to the hospital, and it becomes like this domino effect, because many times women doesn't know when it's time to go to the hospital, because if you can still walk and talk, it's too early. So if you get to the point where you go into the hospital too early, either they'll tell you to go home, or they'll have you check in, and then they set you on a clock, because they start watching to see how long you're going to take, and then that's when they start asking you if you want to have an induction, or they're going to start saying that that it's taking too long, and they put you on the monitor, and so it becomes a very stressful. No matter, you can plan for it as well as you like, but if you're not prepared, if you haven't done your homework and you don't have any support to go in there with you, which is where a doula comes in. If you can't have a midwife, then it can become a very ugly process where you can end up having an induction, which actually can take as long, and you're exposing yourself to a lot of drugs, the baby to drugs, and if you plan to breastfeed, once the baby comes, the baby is affected by the drugs and becomes, drowsy, and the baby can't, breastfeed if they're filled up with drugs. But it's, I try to, encourage women to, to do as much as they can to know about their hospitals, about their county, and to know about what their rights are, and to really, become very active and making sure that they get what they want. But it has to be a collective effort. But I think eventually there will be, every state, like I said before, that every state will have have legislation on the table to for women, for midwives to practice wherever, whether it's a birthing center or be a home birth midwife. But there has to be a lot of continuing advocacy for changing the laws and in supporting, family, prenatal care, midwifery, because it's important. It's very important.
This has been wonderful. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome.